What's up YouTube, Dal here from Zephyr War Games, and today I'm going to bring you the branded basics. Now what do I mean by that is basically I'm going to show you all the different types of combos that follow off from the back of branded fusion, what it can get you depending on the different variations that you're playing, how you can protect yourself from super poly, and how you can protect yourself from stuff like imperms, veilers, and ash blossoms. With all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So, we're going to start with the most basic one-card combo that you should know already, but just to kind of reiterate it, we're going to go with the Branded Fusion. Now, this card on its own will give you your boss monster of Mirror Jade. Now, it is unprotected by everything, so it will be hit by ashes, imperms, veilers, you name it, but this is just the very base bone effect that you can play around with. So straight away you activate Branded Fusion. Because we don't have a discard, you need to make sure that you're sending a light monster, which is where you send Fawn of Albaz and the light Hexil, because the card you're going to be going for will be the Albion. You'll then trigger the Albion effect on summon to banish the light and the dark. Now this is where it gets interesting, is you can do a couple of different routes of this play. Now, this route can end you on a Mirror Jade, and if you do so, you leave the light Hexil in the graveyard and you banish the Albion, and that will give you your Mirror Jade. If you're going second, or if you do have a discard in your hand that you wanted to save for a specific reason, it could be Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, and you actually keep Albion on the board, but you're not protected from Super Poly, so keep that in mind. You will banish your Albaz and your Light Hexil. The other alternative as well is if you're going more aggressive, is rather than all of these, you again can, if you wanted to, choose to banish the Albion instead of the Albaz for the Dragon for the Red Eyes Dark Dragoon, if you wanted to dodge the Super Poly that way. The other option that you have is you can go into the Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon. Again, if you wanted to keep the Albaz in the graveyard, you can. The chances are you're going to be making the Tyrant Dragon going second, so you're going to be more aggressive. So this will allow you to clear the board with Tyrant Dragon, and then Albion will be able to attack as well, because unlike Lubellion, Albion can still attack. If you do get to a poly or anything else and you fuse this off, you'll get additional resource, but we'll talk about that combo later on. So now let's start protecting from those pesky hand traps. Now, we're going to start off with Branded Fusion and then a random discard. Now, the random discard can be any card you want, so we're just going to show you this one very, very quickly. This is just the Lubellion route. So you activate the Branded Fusion, and this is where you can start regaining a bit of resource. So, option number one depends on if you are playing the Shaddoll version or not. If you are playing the Shaddoll version, what this is going to get you is this is actually going to give you a Winder, plus you can get a draw or a search depending on the route you want to take the deck. Now what I mean by that is if you wanted to, you do get the ability to search yourself out a Shaddoll monster, and if you wanted to, you could also go Beast for a random draw as well. So it's entirely up to you. In this example, we're going to use Beast because I think it's just the best +1 card to kind of work it that way. And then it also gives you Winder, which can be just as painful on its own. Keeping in mind that they can just activate Branded Fusion, will give them Albion, but then it means they can't then trigger the second effect to spin back. So that's very important. So you activate your Branded Fusion, you're going to send your Shaddoll Beast and your Fallen of Albaz. This is why specifically you need a discard, because you can only make Lubellion this way. You'll then trigger Lubellion's effect to spin the materials back, but you go Chainlink 1, Lubellion, Chainlink 2, Beast. Now, obviously, this is a way to kind of make Beast be the Ash target, but as you've probably guessed by now, your opponent's probably going to Ash the Branded Fusion, if anything, first off. So by the time you get to this point, either they're the biggest brain play players ever and they're holding on to the Ash Blossom, which sometimes it does happen, because if your opponent tries to go branded in red, ashing the Albion, because it sets or adds, can be actually more important than the Branded Fusion, because they would have already burnt their Mirror Jade using the effect to get the Albion to the graveyard. So keep that in mind. So what we're going to do here is obviously we'll discard the random card off of Lubellion, but we'll as cost, and then we'll also draw a card off of Beast as well to replace the card we've just discarded. You can then use Lubellion's effect, and this again where you get two options. You can spin back the Lubellion and the Fallen of Albaz to give you your Mirror Jade, or you can spin back the Beast and the Albaz making sure that we're just using this so that the discard is a nothing card. If the discard, of course, is a dart monster or is something that's relevant, you could still fuse that way as well. And then you can go into Shadar Winder. Now, obviously, it's a very soft lock. It does kind of play around Super Poly as well because you've got a light and a dark. So unless they're going to commit a Despia to the board to try and make the Pro Skillion, it does give you a way to kind of play around it. So that's your basic Shadol route as well if you are playing this particular version, and this is where you're not using any of the Despias. Speaking of which, now let's show you what happens if you are using some of the Despias, because in my opinion it's probably the strongest route around. So the way we're going to go with this one is, again, we'll go with Branded Fusion and then we're going to go with a random discard. Now this is where you can start gaining a bit of resource. This is where you can loop the Branded in red. It's entirely up to you. So you're going to activate your Branded Fusion. The first thing you're going to send off for this one will be Fallen of Albaz and your Despia, or Despian specifically, Tragedy. This will then, of course, summon out the Lubellion. You'll then use the effect of Lubellion to discard as cost as Chainlink 1 and Chainlink 2 your Tragedy. Chainlink 2 of Tragedy will search you out a Luba, the Jester of Despia. Chainlink 1 at Lubellion will summon back or spin back the Fallen of Albaz and the Lubellion to give you a Mirror Jade. There we go. Get yourself into the habit that if you're going first, always put your monsters in defense, because trust me, a Lightning Storm hurts. You're then going to normal summon your Aluba, and this is a way where you don't need to use Mirror Jade's effect because you can get yourself into a nice free Branded in red. And then the way this works is during your opponent's turn, you activate your Mirror Jade effect, you send the Albion, the Branded Dragon, to banish non-target banisher card. And then you've got the ability of activating Branded in red. This will then allow you to add back your Tragedy, and then you can fuse, you can go into a Masquerade Dragon if you want, but you can fuse all three of these, banish them, and this will let you go into the Guardian Chimera. This will have 2 pops and 1 draw because you use 2 monsters on the field. You'll also be able to trigger the Tragedy effect, which will allow you to search you out at Aluba, so you've got a follow-up for the next turn. Keeping in mind as well that the Albion will set a Branded in red or a Branded Fusion, or you can add it. It's entirely up to you. Either one, I would probably add the Branded in red because Aluba will get you the other one when it is normal summoned. So that is obviously combo number 1 for the Despias, but kind of just a combo plus a discard. This combo gets so much better, and in my opinion is probably my favourite combo for the entire deck, just because it lets you loop around your monsters and loops the Mirror Jade. It doesn't protect it from Super Poly, but it does loop it around quite nicely. So in this example, what we're going to do is we're actually going to open up a little bit differently. Now, we'll go with, of course, Branded Fusion. That's the idea. And then all you need is a route, in theory, to Aluba. So if you open up Tragedy, but in this one I'm going to open up Comedy, because in this same combo I'm going to show you how you can dodge a Imperm or a Veiler. So open up Aluba. This can easily be Branded Opening plus a random discard, which makes this combo a little bit more consistent. But you're going to activate your Branded Fusion. With the Branded Fusion, of course, you're going to do the exact same play. You're going to send your Tragedy and your Fallen of Albaz, wherever he is, there we go. Send your Fallen of Albaz. You're going to make your Lubellion. And then what you're going to do here is you're going to resolve the chain. Keeping in mind this discards as cost, which is why it's really important. So you go Chainlink 1 Lubellion, discarding as cost Comedy. Chainlink 2 your Despian Tragedy to search. Now, in this scenario, you could actually do it the other way around. Again, the only reason that you try and chain block the Lubellion is if you're fearful for an Ash. If your opponent is outbraining you and is planning to hold the Ash, the reason you kind of want to protect this is to make sure that it doesn't get Ghost Spelled or Ghost Mourned or anything like that. So that's where you want to keep in mind, and that's what you're trying to play with. If your opponent does attempt to Imperm or Veiler this, keep in mind this effect is already activated. So you go Chainlink 3 Imperm or Veiler, you can go Chainlink 4 Comedy, tribute the Lubellion as cost to summon it back. The effect will still resolve of the Lubellion, spinning the materials back to give you everything you need. So resolve the chain correctly. We get to add Leviathan off of the Despia Tragedy because we've already opened up a route to Aluba. In theory as well, if you've already opened up a route to Branded in red and Branded Fusion, it's not the end of the world if you don't have Aluba, so you can actually ignore that. This can be like a certitude of many cards. Then you resolve the Lubellion, spin Lubellion back from the graveyard. and spin Fallen of Albaz back to the main deck, and that will of course give you your Mirror Jade. Now ideally, you kind of want to make sure you don't need to use the your Despia Comedy, but in this one as well, this does give you the ability of just going, okay, activate Mirror Jade's effect. Some people do go to the end phase anyway, just to kind of dodge any particular phase cards. But you activate Mirror Jade during your turn to send the Albion to the graveyard to banish the Comedy. You will then trigger the effect of Albion to set you your branded in red. Obviously, the downside of this is you've already used Mirror Jade, but don't worry, we're going to recycle it with the Adlerbyton. So during your opponent's turn, the best thing about this is it means that you don't have to try and wait for this. The worst thing is if they MST, Twin Twist or anything like that, your branding in red goes from being a Guardian Chimera to being a Masquerade Dragon. So keep that in mind, that does adapt, but it does basically allow you to play around pretty much everything. It just gets stronger if it's Guardian Chimera, weaker if it's Masquerade Dragon, but then again, if you're up against Flunders, you're just going to sit and watch them basically burn themselves out. So you activate the branded in red. You target the Tragedy that you left in grey from the previous turn. You then fuse Tragedy, Adlerbyton, and the Mirror Jade, banishing all three to go into your Chimera. Like I said, if they do attempt to pop the brand in red before they put a monster on the board, you can choose to just fuse with the Adlerbyton and the Mirror Jade. So you bring out the Guardian Chimera. Guardian Chimera will go Chainlink 1. I always put Adlerbyton Chainlink 2, and then I put Tragedy Chainlink 3. Yes, there's fewer cards that can stop the Adlerbyton, but I don't even want to risk it. Should my opponent have something that will stop it, and off the top of my head, I'm not completely sure of what it would be, but just to kind of make sure everything is protected. The way this would then resolve is your Tragedy would then let you add an Aluba for the follow-up the next turn. Your Adlerbyton will bring you back the Mirror Jade, which will have its effect refreshed, so it can use its effect again. And then the Guardian Chimera, as it used one monster on the field, will pop one card and let you draw 2 more random cards. So if these are hand traps, you're in even more of a better position. Not to mention, you've already got your normal summon follow-up to give you your Brand Infusion the next turn. And you've got the effect, if you really, really want to get to a Brand Infusion before using it, is you can send your other Albion to the graveyard, and then that will then, in the end phase, let you add or set a branded in red. So that is probably my favourite combo. Like, I absolutely love it. You just need to open up a route already to Aluba or Adlerbyton, and that is where you get the most out of everything. I'm going to show you another combo as well. This is just very specific, but this one is more about like hand resource and resource management in general. And it can also give you a Masquerade Dragon plus a Masquerade Dragon plus your Mirror Jade Dragon as well. But you do need to open up with an Edge Imp Chain. So specifically you need to open up an Edge Imp Chain, which is why this is a bit specific depending on what kind of deck you are playing. So we'll go with the Brand Infusion and the Edge Imp Chain. And again, we're going to make it a very basic one here. If you do get a route to Aluba or a route to Adlerbyton, then you got the full Adlerbyton combo branded in red route as well. But here we're going to activate Branded Infusion. Branded Fusion. We're going to do the exact same play again. Albaz send Tragedy. Now this is also quite good if you don't have the Alubas, because Tragedies, and I think Adlerbytons will probably creep up in price. But just for the addition of this, as long as you've got branded in red, Tragedy just search you directly out the Adlerbyton and allows you to make that combo play that I showed you in the previous one. So again, what we're going to do here is you're going to go straight into your Lubellion. Lubellion will then discard the Edge Imp Chain as cost for Chainlink 1, Tragedy as Chainlink 2. Keep in mind, if you spin back the Edge Imp Chains now, it will miss its timing, so you will not get the effect to search you out a Patchwork, which is why it's really important that you don't spin it back. You can then use the effect of Tragedy to search you out. Now, in this example, the two options you've got is you go Aluba. Aluba will then be the one that gives you your branded in red. But I'm going to do it a bit more of a budget option to kind of show you the route of where you can play. So the other route is you actually got your Adlerbyton instead. So by doing this, what you do is you actually lose, you can recycle your graveyard, but you would go for a Masquerade Dragon during your turn. So we'll keep both out just so I can show you the different extents of each play. So you resolve the Lubellion, you put Lubellion back into the extra deck, you put Fallen of Albaz back into your main deck, and that gives you Mirror Jade. Like, that's your best boss monster straight away. It's not really worth messing around with that. You'll then trigger off the Edge Imp Chain on this new chain, and this will then let you get your Fright for Patchwork. Now obviously when you add the Patchwork as well, you can then activate it because you're going to add a poly and a second chain, which basically just gives you back your resource. Now keep in mind, we're only going to have 3 cards amongst these, so it's entirely up to you on where you're going. So if you go with the Aluba, you get rid of your Adler Bite play, but you gain a Masquerade, so it means your opponent is going to instantly start burning. You do put yourself under a Super Poly territory, so you do need to be very careful of that. But the idea would be that you normal summon the Aluba. Aluba would then search you out a branded in red because it's the next best thing that you want. Then you don't need to use the Mirror Jade effect to get rid of it because you've already got branded in red. So you can activate the polymerization, use the chain plus Aluba, and go into a Masquerade Dragon. So then straight away, your opponent's going to start burning. Should they put you under any threat, you could always activate Mirror Jade, send a card, activate branded in red, add back Tragedy, and then fuse with Mirror Jade and Tragedy to make a second Masquerade. So, for example, what I mean by that is if you're up against Flunders, this is the route that I would go, because then they're going to be burning for 1200 every time they activate an effect. And I feel that it is near impossible for them to win under those conditions. If you do it the other way, the only thing you're missing is you're missing a monster on the board to trigger the Mirror Jade effect to get you into the branded in red. So you would then have to do it a completely different route, which would go like this. So let's reset this a little bit. Let's take the branded red back to the deck. And instead of taking the Aluba, we take the Adler Bite. We still trigger the effect of chain, so we still have everything we need. In this example right here, what you're then going to do is you're going to activate polymerization. You're going to fuse the Adler Bite and the Edge Imp chain in the hand to go into your Masquerade Dragon. You will then trigger the Adler Bite effect, and this will then let you bring back Tragedy, as it is your only target, which you don't mind. All you're doing is you're going to starve yourself of a resource for the next turn. So now what you're going to do here is you're going to go end phase, you're going to activate Mirror Jade's effect, send the Albion to banish the Tragedy. This will then let you search or set a branded in red. During your opponent's turn, you've already used this effect, so it basically means you're less reliant on waiting to use this effect. You now have 2 options again. Because we don't have that card in hand, it's going to be a little bit more tricky to make the Guardian Chimera, but we're going to do double burn. So we're going to activate branded in red. We're going to add back the Adler Biten. We're going to fuse the Mirror Jade and the Adler Biten, banishing those. This will then bring down a second Masquerade Dragon. And again, if you do this during like your opponent's draw phase, it straight away puts them on a bigger ticking clock. Keep in mind, if they activate Dark Ruler, if they activate Droplets or anything like that, they're still going to take the burn. You obviously don't want them to, but it does also put them under a bit of a sticky situation should they want to try and super poly you, because you'll go Adler Biten's effect, bring back Mirror Jade with a refreshed effect, and then everything they do, they're burning for 1200, and you still have this live as well, so you can banish a monster. So again, just kind of imagine it in the Flunder matchup. Normal summon a Flunder or activate map, burn for 1200. Get to a Flunder, burn for 1200. Flunder's effect to recycle from the banish, burn for 1200. And then if you ever get put into a threatening position, you just go, cool, Mirror Jade, send, banish it, and they would have already burnt an effect to try and clear this board or empty it out as well. Anyway, I hope you found this useful. I've tried to go through as many of the basics as possible. Like I said, Comedy is your out to targeted protection. So if your opponent attempts to target it with Veiler, Imperm, even if they want to try and target it with Ghost Mourner, you can tag it out for Comedy and you can protect it. Your protection from Ash, not that you should ever get to that point, because 9 times out of 10, like I said, unless they're thinking mega big brain and trying to save the Ash for a Fusion Destiny or an Albion, which I have done in the past, you should be good, but you always chain block it just in case. You always want to make sure you're as protected as possible. Anyway, hope you found this useful. Hope this has given you a couple of tips, tricks, and everything you need to know about running branded. And if you do have any questions about the builds or any questions about the combos, please put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. But for now, as absolutely always, guys, stay safe. And of course, happy dueling.